I'm so excited for all of us to be here today. Lindsay and I we've just been so excited for today to come and officially launch our HTP Author Masterclass programming. So I'm sure many of you saw when you signed up for this, there are other sessions that we're going to be offering and much more to come that Lindsay will share and talk about. But we are just so excited to launch today's session, which is really all about digital trends. But the greater goal of this is that we just have the opportunity to be able to connect with all of you, our authors, for you to ask any questions, and really just be able to answer any questions or comments that you have in real time. So it just makes everything a little bit easier, and hopefully a little bit quicker for everyone to get responses, because we know there's so much for all of our authors to be doing to support their book. And we just want to make sure that when it comes to all the incredible time and energy that you put into supporting your titles, that you feel like you're being guided in the best way, and making sure that all the energy that you're putting in is getting the most return. So as we go through today, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to put them into the chat. But on that note, let me pass it over to our fabulous Lindsay Reeder, who I'm sure some of you have already met. She is our Senior Digital Marketing Manager here at HTP Books and lives and breathes the internet. I will completely steal Lindsay's line, which is, if it happens on the internet, she knows about it, which is completely true. So over to you, Lindsay.
Awesome. I am so happy to be chatting with all of you today. And as I talk through, and I'll share my PowerPoint in a second, I just want to be able to see you all right now, or see the comments. As I share my screen and do all that, just sending comments. Amy is going to be watching the comment box and she'll interrupt me and say, hey, we've got a great question. So send all the questions. No question's a bad question when it comes to the internet. Trust me. We've been asked all the things and they just make us better. Questions just make us better in general. So I am super excited, one, that we're talking about digital marketing trends today, because this is a conversation that never really ends. I think we could have this conversation every 3 months because there's something new all the time. And then just to kind of, and I'll do this at the end to pitch some of our other masterclass sessions. We've got a couple coming up about TikTok. We've got one coming up about how to grow your Instagram audience. And then in the new year, we're planning on bringing this back and adding some more, and we'll send quizzes out and all that. But I'm just super excited to get started. So let me share my screen. This should work. Hopefully you are seeing this. Okay, you're seeing a picture of me looking off to the right? Amy?
You look fantastic.
Perfect. So as Amy said, I am Lindsay Reeder. I'm the Senior Digital Marketing Manager. I do spend a lot of time on the internet, whether if I'm working or if I'm laying in bed sideways on TikTok, I am on the internet at almost all times of the day. My specialties are related to websites and SEO, newsletter, social media marketing, and advertising in particular. And all those different facets fall under my umbrella. I have an incredible team that are all experts at it. So if you have any questions about these that even if we don't talk about today, my email is at the bottom, and I have someone on my team that will probably know the answer if I don't know it. I'm super excited today to take you through a couple of digital marketing trends. I kept it kind of high level with some of the things that I think are the most pertaining to authors right now. But if there's something here that you want to talk through, we can talk through it, definitely. But today we're going to talk through video, so TikTok in particular, influencers, live and Instagram stories, and Pinterest and Clubhouse. I know you're seeing Pinterest and you're like, do people still go on Pinterest? But the answer is yes, I've got some stats. I'll share them, I promise. So this is called, my first slide is about marketing in the micro moment. What's a micro moment? So Google basically says, no, I'll start here. This is what I'm going to say. If you're sitting there and you're like making dinner and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to look up that thing. And then all of a sudden you're burning your dinner because you're like looking at 6 other things, you've fallen down a rabbit hole. That's the micro moment. Right now, a lot of things are tied to the fact that you can still see my screen, right? Not the notes I'm sharing, right, Amy? Perfect. So basically, I do this all the time too. And according to my iPhone screen time.
Actually, sorry, Lindsay, it did just switch over to, there we go.
This you're seeing, right?
Okay, now we're seeing it again. We were seeing your notes.
Perfect, perfect. No worries. I'll just go rogue, but I've been reading the notes a lot today, so don't worry. So when it comes to this, basically my screen time, the little notification, if you have an iPhone, it tells you how many times you pick up your phone a day. According to my screen time, I pick it up 56 times a day. That means I pick up my phone 56 times a day. Hopefully you guys are in the same bucket and you pick up your phone just as much. But according to Google, essentially 91% of people are doing the same thing. And these are the 4 buckets, the little micro moments that people are kind of thinking in. They're thinking in, I want to know, so awareness. I want to go somewhere, so I'm figuring that out, whether it be traveling, who does that anymore? I want to do something, looking up ideas, or I want to buy something. And that's really nice when that happens, because then they just convert right away. So why I'm sharing all this with you is because I think it's really important now more than ever to think outside of the demographics. I think sometimes we talk about, okay, my genre and the people in my books are these types of people. I think that's great, but thinking more in the micro moment kind of thing and how they're using the internet provides a lot of opportunity for us in general, just to kind of take everyone through and kind of say, what are they doing? Who are they doing it? And how am I talking to them effectively? And just to be completely transparent, our advertising, our social media, newsletters, all of our strategy has kind of worked around this strategy, more thinking about the consumer themselves and how they're looking at things on the internet, as opposed to just the demographics or geographic kind of information. So today I want to talk you through kind of these micro moments, but how to use different places and what's kind of happening in the here and now with all these things. First things first, it would not feel right today without talking about TikTok. I can't tell you how many times we get to talk about TikTok a day. It makes me feel justified for picking up my phone 56 times a day to go on this app. We spend a ridiculous amount of time on it. And right now, Book Talk in particular is having a major moment. So if you don't know what Book Talk is, essentially TikTok is the app, the platform itself, but in the TikTok realm, there's different buckets. So there's craft talk and book talk and, food talk. There's lots of different places. But what's been really, really exciting when it comes to TikTok in particular is that Book Talk has had a moment that has stopped retailers in their tracks. Next week, we're going to talk all things TikTok, but I want to make sure to say that Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo here in Canada, everywhere like that, you will walk into their stores and you'll see a display and it'll say, as seen on TikTok or trending on TikTok. These moments are not something that it's ever been like. It's been a long time since social media has had this much of an impact in the book retailer market. And we are starting to see it with our retailers, and we're working really closely with them to ensure that we get lots and lots of books on there. So what's the talk about TikTok? Okay, so you're seeing lots of little things and you're like, which way do I go first? I'm going to take your eyes to the top right-hand side, which is that TikTok users are opening the app 8 times a day. It's pretty crazy. I was like, is it just me? So I asked my team, are you guys opening the app that many times a day? And they all said yes. And we were a little embarrassed, but it's normal. That makes us feel a little bit better, but it just goes to show how popular the app is right now. The next metric I take your eyes to is that people are spending 52 minutes a day on this app. That's an hour. That's a lot of time on social platforms. In other words, a lot of people are still on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on all these platforms, but for them to have a full hour on a platform, that's kind of unheard of these days. And it's especially unheard of because TikTok really became a thing as of April 2020. I know we were all locked in our homes. Everybody was bored and tired and sick of looking at the television, and TikTok kind of hit and it had a major, major moment. So the Book Talk community in particular, right now, if you look up that hashtag, there are 1.8 billion uses of the hashtag Book Talk, which is just kind of nuts. Again, the community there is blowing up and we can hardly keep up with it, but don't worry, we are. Right now, there is 1 billion active users on the platform. There's 130 million monthly active users. I think what we all get kind of you'll hear it a lot when people say TikTok, well, that's just a younger demographic. Oh, that's the 13-year-olds. I don't really spend a lot of time there because that's young people. And that's not not true. But I would say during the pandemic, especially, this kind of opened itself up definitely to that 25 to 44-year-old age range. And, you know, that demographic in particular, they convert. So that's a really great thing, but never write off the 13 to 17-year-olds and things like that, because they are buying the books because we're seeing it in the retailer numbers. So whether or not they convert right away, the reality is that they are on this app and it is converting sales. And not just frontlist anymore. Backlist opportunities are everywhere. Some of the big books have been The Song of Achilles, the We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. And I know some of these are YA, but there's been some other really great ones too. The Lost Apothecary, Honey Girl. Some of our books have really struck a chord there, and it's been really exciting. And we have a lot of different strategies going into place of how we're going to keep that momentum going and get all your books on the platform in an effective way. I'm going to take a sip of water.
So just while you're taking a quick break, one of the questions that came up actually, Hannah Mary McKinnon was asking this, and she was just saying about, we were talking a bit about this the other day actually, but there's so many platforms.
Yeah.
And you could literally have an entire team, in the case we do, that is there for Instagram, there for Facebook, there for building out your newsletter, there for TikTok. And realistically, you know, as your publisher, we want you to be able to have time to write your incredible stories and not have to feel like you're spreading yourself thin. Do you want to talk a little bit to, maybe we can just pause and just talk a little bit to, you know, yes, there's going to be a variety of platforms, but, you know, it's not the case that you need to be on every single one of the platforms and the different trends that we're talking about today. It's more so for awareness, but
yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for setting me up for that, because I should have said that at the top of the presentation. You're going to see a lot of different platforms today. They're kind of what's trending right now, but I think the takeaway for this presentation in particular is that there are different moments happening. They might not be the same thing in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, what have you. So my advice when I'm speaking with authors is always choose a platform and do it really, really well. If you try to spread yourself too thin, sometimes it gets overwhelming. You're just like, I don't want to do any of it. It's just hard to do. And all of these different platforms, what I don't want you guys to do today is say, okay, so Pinterest is it. And it is. If you like Pinterest and it feels comfortable to you and it's natural, then I'm all in. But I think it's one of those things that you have to feel comfortable on the platform, because if you try to do it all, it'll just not work. It just all kind of falls through the crack. And I just know that from both personal experience and then from a publisher experience. You have to be really mindful of who you're talking to and how you're doing it. And the TikTok content creation is very different than the Pinterest. And I know you guys know that, but I do think it's worth noting that everything has to feel a little bit curated for the audience itself, and that audience changes all the time. So I think if there's a facet that comes out of this today, it's knowing about these different trends that are happening. And if one feels interesting or exciting to you, I say, put that hat on for a while, give it a go, put some real energy and effort into it, and go from there.
I think that's a very important piece is the idea of, you know, you may watch a platform for a little bit, but this doesn't by any stretch mean that you need to add an additional book talk. Exactly to your point, it's really about, are you comfortable there, right? Like some people love Facebook and they're great at Facebook, and other people love Instagram, or they love Pinterest, or they love, so, you know, pick what you're most comfortable, do that one platform, and don't try, exactly as you're saying, to spread yourself too thin, or to take the same content and use it everywhere, so that someone who follows you on Facebook sees the exact same thing on Instagram and things like that, because those audiences are so different. Bryn Turnbull is asking a question. I'm not familiar with TikTok, but from what I've heard, what I've heard is that it might not be younger users, but it's predominantly YA. Is that the case?
I think it was predominantly YA. I do not think that anymore. And that's because we're spending a lot of time in the app itself trying to understand. The backlist has been all tied to YA, but I think in the last probably 3 to 4 months, it's been a lot of adult. And I think everyone's kind of coming over from Bookstagram and dipping their toe and trying, because the content and the creation around the content is very different. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for frontlist. I think we're about there, and we'll start to see that shift big time in the next 2 months, especially leading up to the holidays.
Okay, that's great. All right.
Awesome.
One
Sure.
last thing. Lee Tobin McLean is just asking, I'm so curious how much time other authors spend on digital marketing or just marketing per day. She was saying that she's at about an hour to an hour and a half each day. What do you have any thoughts on, like, to be on a platform and to do it well? Is this 30 minutes a day? Is this an hour a day? Kind of how do you map it out when you think about it?
Yeah, I think this ties really nicely back to kind of what we were saying of doing something well. I think doing it for 30 to 40 minutes a day just to get comfortable. The goal when you're doing these different digital marketing platforms or social media in particular is that you like doing it. The second it feels forced or that you have to do it that way, it's not fun. And then your audience, they really pick up on it. Each one has like an authenticity factor to it. So I say spend some time, enjoy it, have fun, engage with the audience. Don't just be about content creation. Tap into the market itself, or whether it be like Book Talk or Bookstagram or Twitter, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. Learning and watching others and how they engage on the platform will just make you better. And then it'll be more natural when you start to do it. It won't feel like work, or that's always my hope, is that it doesn't feel like work. And I will also say, and I know a lot of our imprint managers are on the call, we do create a lot of assets for you guys. If there's somewhere you're like, I am here and I love it, and you need assets in that realm, these are things in which we can create for you and pass along too. So we're here and we're your publisher, and we want to ensure that you have the best assets that you have. And that changes all the time, but we want to make sure you have everything you might need to push your book out in the biggest, loudest way.
Okay. All right. That's great. And if there's other authors in the chat who want to share how much time they're spending on their socials, feel free to. And actually, in a few slides, we're going to be talking about kind of some easy or clever ways of being able to engage with your audience, but also not having to reinvent the wheel that you feel like you're constantly having to develop completely original content. So we'll get to that in a moment. Back to you, Lindsay, with the TikTok overview.
Awesome. And just quickly on the TikTok, I'm not going to go too deep into the how to do it and what we like. There's like, we talked a little bit about it, but next week it's going to be all TikTok. And I'm really excited. I've got that deck almost finished. And so it's just filled with like nuggets of information that I think you're going to really enjoy. This slide is just to show you, and this is like a sliver of what we saw in media when it comes to book talk. That one in particular, the How Crying on TikTok Sells Books, was the New York Times article that kind of made every publisher sit up a little straighter and say, what is this thing called book talk? And then everything else kind of fell into place. So there is so much opportunity in general. And again, they're seeing it. These articles are from 2 weeks ago in some cases. So the moment is now. It will continue to lead into the holidays. And I feel really excited about where we're going with the platform in general, whether it be advertising or content creations ourselves. Your books will be represented on the platform, and we're going to really talk to them effectively on this platform. So I'm just really excited because this is, again, not something we've seen when it comes to social media and publishing in a while. And it just kind of like resparks the like, whoo, this is exciting. We're back in it. And just a really great opportunity. Some of the book talk trends that we're seeing is that emotional connection. There's a lot of content created around books that will make you fall in love, books that will make you cry, those kinds of things. A lot of it's tied to a feeling. And that's where some of that YA connection was happening. But again, that doesn't mean to say that we can't do the same thing on the adult side. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in that realm. There's reviews of books, people holding the books up, them pointing to different things. There's a lot of reviews. And then they also always say if there's going to be a spoiler, because they don't want to ruin it. The community is very nice to one another in that way. A lot of unboxings, opening new books, showcasing what they've bought, showcasing what they've received from publishers, what have you. Lots of different things. And these are just 3 things. Like I said, I'll go into more depth next week. But I think it's just really exciting of some of the trends. And a lot of these trends are tied to the music that we're hearing and all those songs that are on TikTok that we keep hearing now on the radio. They all kind of work together. So it's a big, wonderful world. I can't wait to talk about it with you guys more. And if you're not registered for that, you should be. It's going to be great. Oh, there we go. So influencer marketing. What's influencer marketing? So that's us sending out lots and lots of books to people with big followings. And I want to go to the next slide because there's different levels of influencers. What we usually work with really closely is nano influencers and micro influencers. And as you can see there, sometimes they range between 1,000 and 5,000, and other times they range between like 5,000 to 10,000 micro influencers. Regardless of all this, I think what's really interesting is this is the bookstagrammers, the people who are knocking on our doors for all of your books. They have a big following. And what's really, really great about influencers is that they are a credited source in the social platform, whatever it might be, as somebody who has influence, exactly that. And they talk about our books and all of that. And it's really, really great. And a lot of times they can come directly to the author. That happens frequently. But I want to go to the next slide here is because we have now developed an in-house database. It says 400 plus. As of this morning, it was 437 influencers on our list. And these influencers range from young adult to historical fiction to fiction itself. There's lots of different genres. But what's really, really exciting is that we are building one-on-one relationships with these people. We're talking to them. We're understanding what they like. We're curating lists that we know that they'll like, that they'll showcase on their platforms. We feel really excited about that. On the other hand, every single one of them is auto-approved on NetGalley. So they have access to your books as soon as they're up on NetGalley. They can request, they can take them, read them, and talk about them. If they really love them, they usually all do. Then they basically knock on our door and say, listen, I really want to show it and hold it up in my video and things like that. We're also sending out physical galleys and what have you, and physical books too, to some of those big micro influencers as a whole. Amy, I saw you unmuted, so then I stopped.
I know. It's almost like we practiced this. So Bryn Turnbull was just asking in the chat, is the book talk community predominantly focused on readers, i.e. do they want authors and publishers there, or is it more about readers and authentic reactions?
Yeah, great question. I would say that right now it's readers and community as a whole. I've seen a few authors on the platform, John Green, Hank Green, a couple other big authors with like crazy followings, and they are making content that's really pertaining to the community, that feels authentic or native to the platform is what I would say. It feels like TikTok, excuse me. And that's when I see it work well. I'll have examples to share next week in particular, so you can kind of see what I'm seeing. But I think gone are the days of like the trailer of holding up a book and saying, hi, I'm so-and-so and I wrote this book. That kind of content does not work necessarily on that platform. So right now it's community based, but if you made a piece of content that's like, when you have to write your book, but you get distracted because you just dropped on Netflix or what have you, like there's different ways to kind of talk to the community that feels authentic, and it doesn't matter that you're an author. In fact, they like it because you're there and they're like, oh my goodness, this is great. So I think that TikTok is in its infancy right now. And the moment, to be completely frank, is right now for authors to weave into the platform as a whole and find their voice and their feet in the platform as a whole.
Okay. That's great. And Hoden was dropping in some additional social tips. So that's fantastic. All right, back to the slide.
Yeah, so going back to influencers as a whole, the most exciting thing when it comes to working with all these influencers that we have, and I should say really quickly too, these are Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers who have real reach on those platforms in a big way. Right now, our goal is, yes, get the books out, get them reading, get them talking about our books, but also there's full opportunity for us and you to repurpose this content. So there's opportunities when they make the content to say, if you, the author, say, I love what you talked about on my book, would you mind if I share this on my social platform? They would love it. In fact, many times I think when it comes to social media in general, if they tag you and you're like, I don't know, should I share it? The answer is always yes. If you are tagged, they want you, one, to see it, and two, they want you to share it. It feels so special to a reader when you do share it. So never feel like you're kind of overstepping. It's the internet. You can share everything. Don't plagiarize, please. But I'm just saying, I think it's one of those things where you can just give credit and say, at Joe Smith said this book was their favorite book and I'm so happy. Those kinds of things really, really work. So repurpose content from every platform and just kind of give credit where credit's due and thank them, but kind of it pushes your message out and then you don't have to do all that heavy lifting. It's already there. And we, your publisher, are doing the same thing. So it's really, really exciting. And then just like you guys are having this one-on-one with us, we're going to be doing future presentations to the influencers directly, where we see opportunity for the authors to drop in and say hello and do presentations to the influencers. So lots more to come in that realm as well. Live video. Okay. You're like, oh gosh, I don't know about this live video thing, but I will say this, I'm talking about two different things when I'm talking about live video. I'm talking about Instagram stories and I'm talking about Instagram live. And on TikTok, you can go live too, but you have to have 1,000 followers. That's the rule. So fun facts, if you didn't know, now you know. First things I'm going to talk about is Instagram stories. You're seeing a lot of different stats here. You're probably like, okay, what do I need to see? I think what you need to see is Instagram stories in particular right now have more legs and more like footing in some ways than the actual in feed. So we work so hard. You guys work so hard at taking these beautiful photos. Right now, people are spending way more time on Instagram feed or stories, than they are on the actual feed. So I encourage you to really think about what kind of content you're putting out in the stories as a whole. I always say that there's opportunities. It's called a story. I feel like this is the weirdest thing to say to a bunch of amazing authors. It's called stories because it's supposed to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So if you're going to just share a bunch of content because you were tagged in it, that's okay, 100%. But if you were to hold up your phone and say, hi, I'm going to share some of the different cool things I've been tagged in this week that I want you to see. And then you post all the different pictures that you've been tagged in and then say, I love how much you guys are loving it. Like tag me in future things and I'll post it. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like I said, and it just works a lot better because people are more likely to stick around and see it because they say, oh, I want to see what they're talking about and what have you, as opposed to just, I'm just dropping this here. Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, so a couple questions have popped up. I love seeing all the questions in the chat. So the first one from Diane Brown, who said, are there ever times when influencers are compensated or given swag?
Yes, swag. We often have bookmarks and things like that. It makes a lot of sense. Right now, when it comes to influencers, the 400 that we've been working with, it's all been organic, i.e. no money. There are conversations happening about like paid influencers as a whole, but it's just it can get really expensive. So we're just being selective in that right now with the excitement with Book Talk in particular and Bookstagram. They're just so happy to be given a free book that right now we just don't feel the need to have to pay right now.
And then Sarah, Megabo, sorry about that. She said 430 influencers equals amazing. Yes.
Yay!
Do you submit all books to all 437, or do you curate the catalog and push some books more than others? Is it a standard 1% return, i.e. 347 press releases results in 3 to 4 reviews or mentions? Can you talk a little bit to that? Because this is the piece where, because of this database being organic, not being paid placements, things like that, where if it's paid, you can tell them like, say exactly this and hold up the book for 5 seconds. But when it's organic, how do you see that translation happen? And I guess to start, the catalog that gets built, how does that happen? And then when it comes to, the return of 437, does that mean 437 stories? No, we wish. Can you talk to that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the catalog in particular, the monthly email that goes out, everyone on the list now knows that they're auto approved and all of our books are uploaded there. So that's a great way for us to kind of get every book out there. With galleys and things of that nature, we are selective on how many we send out. So we put limited quantities around them in the monthly newsletter, just so we're not giving hundreds and hundreds of copies away, because 437 people will say, I want it. We've learned that. So we've capped it a little bit and we're very intentional. And when we get, let's say we have 40 copies of an ARC to go out and we have 100 people knocking at our door, we look at our list, we actually have it all vetted into a kind of like a spotlight, kind of like, these are green, they're super good. We've got some red on there that are like, they're good, but they haven't done a lot for us in the past. So we're watching all of that. So we we are very intentional about the people we send it out to. I think to answer the other question and kind of what Amy was saying is because we aren't paying people and this isn't their full-time job and we don't get to say this thing, we can say that, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to do it because they have other things. Then we can't necessarily control all the messaging is what I'm trying to say. That being said, the goal of the influencer database, and we have a whole dedicated person that's spearheading it, is that they are watching what's going out there, that they know these people, that they've talked to them via email, so that these conversations they're just so happy and they've been seen and been talked to by somebody. It's not just like, I'm just sending you this book, enjoy. Like they know they're getting the book. They know that we're excited that they have the book. So there's a lot of like conversation to ensure that like we get the thing we want for no money. But there's a lot, it comes down to, there is time and energy spent into it, and that investment is worth it to us at this point. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. If not, yes, she says yes, and thank you. The other piece that I'll just mention is that when it comes to the catalog that's available, that is a catalog that we're putting onto NetGalley. Mm-hmm. So is that our entire publishing catalog that we share with, I don't know, Amazon? No, it's our catalog for a certain selling season. And then once that book goes on sale, we retire that book off of the NetGalley platform so that basically there's even more encouragement to purchase the book going forward. So it is there for a small window of time. And that's when Lindsay and her team are really working on that organic outreach. That's also when publicity is reaching out to media contents, and marketing is working with librarians, booksellers, so on and so forth. So it's really that lead up of about 6 months before the on sale date of your book. Awesome. All right, back to you, Lindsay.
Great. So just kind of wrapping up here on Instagram stories, I feel like you all know what it is. I really do encourage you to get comfortable, feel comfortable, find a way to be comfortable on Instagram stories and just holding it up and talking to the thing. I don't see a lot of authors doing that as much as they could be doing it. And it's a really unique skill set. And people actually tend to stay when there's live video, or video in particular, as opposed to just pictures of things over and over. So find a way to feel comfortable. If that's for you, this is a great avenue to kind of explore that, because I think right now there's a lot of attention being spent in this particular format, and it can really have impact in a big way, sometimes more than the in feed. Like I said, I know we spend a lot of time making those beautiful photos, but I think right now people want ephemeral content. They want that 24-hour kind of like, I just want to see it quickly and good to go. That's just, our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller, unfortunately.
And sorry, we had one other question that came in from Ellen Meister, and I can just handle this one. So if I was to create my own swag relative to my book, for example, if I ordered a quantity of coffee mugs with the title, could I connect with the team to offer them to influencers? So yeah, I think this is a great conversation to have. You can connect back with your marketing manager and with your editor, and we can figure out the best way of working together. We don't want you having to produce expensive swag and the sheer cost of mailing out a lot of swag, but we can also find ways of working together for, you know, how to set up giveaways on your platform. How do we work so that we're focused on maybe using the swag for consumer giveaways through the scale of the platforms like we have with BookClubbish, for instance, which just has a massive footprint. So there's a couple different ways that we can work together on that.
Awesome. Okay, so Facebook and Instagram Live. What I want to say here is that live videos, they produce 6 times as many interactions as traditional videos. That's true. But when I talk to you guys about like increasing your follower counts on Instagram in particular, what I want to say is that when lives happen, you're really talking to your already existing audience. So it's really hard to kind of pull new people in because you get that alert. There's not a lot of discoverability when it comes to live content. So I say all this being that it's super important, but just remember that you're talking to your established audience. They know who you are. They're following you already. They really feel comfortable with you. So you don't have to kind of explain a lot. Definitely tell them about what your book is about and things of that nature, but you don't have to spend a lot of time on introductions and things of that nature because they're built into your already existing platforms. I think Facebook Live just feels like there's not a lot of people doing it anymore, but I can tell you with as much confidence as I can say. We do a lot of Read with BookClubbishes, and we get so many people on our lives that watch, and then they watch it later, and they watch a long time. Live videos get 10 times more comments than regular videos. So when we just put up a video that's like a square size video that has people talking and authors coming in, that just works so much better. Its popularity increased 333% in just 1 year. Definitely has an impact on the pandemic, as we all know. We've all kind of done, or you guys definitely have probably done some interviews from your home. And I think it's just one of those things that live has a lot of exciting things around it. I'll make sure to share this deck and some other things, but there are some new developments that are coming from Facebook. It's in my notes, but I know I can say with confidence that there is going to be a pre-schedule button that Instagram and Facebook, who are owned by the same guy, he has a lot of money, his name's Mark Zuckerberg. There's going to be a pre-schedule, sorry, that's what I'm trying to say, a pre-schedule kind of button to kind of say, I'm going live on this, and everybody can kind of know and sign up. It's the functionality there is going to be, they're investing in this avenue in a big way. So I see this as a really great thing. The other thing I want to say about live in particular is that because when people do it, when authors do it, when anybody does it, they are so focused on video at Facebook and Instagram that they will put that content at the top of people's feed more than they'll put any kind of like just a picture or an image or any of those things. They are putting so much energy and effort into video that if you go live, and even if you're just saying, listen, I'm making dinner and I want to talk to you about my book, that content will go to the top of the page of your followers more so than any other content that you create. So that's just an exciting opportunity in general.
And Lindsay, Stephanie London was just asking the question, is there an ideal length of time for a live video? Does shorter work better, or do people like more in-depth content? What would you recommend?
I would recommend, well, I would always test because you just don't know. And I think every person is going to be a little bit different. We do something like I mentioned called Read with BookClubbish with our authors every month. We usually do it for about 30 to 40 minutes in general. And we get so many people that watch it because it's great content. If it's just you by yourself, I would recommend like 10 to 15 minutes, only because it's hard to keep the conversation going. That being said, if you're asking like, hey guys, what do you think about this? Did you love page so-and-so? Like those kinds of things, if you're asking comments, it's easier to kind of keep the natural flow of the conversation going. So I think it depends. I would test, I would try like, and if you're not sure, you could ask your audience, was that one too long? Was this? Because they just want to be part of it. They want to be part of the engagement. So if it feels long to you, like maybe scale it back a little bit, but I think it's just testing what your audience responds to. Everybody's would be a little bit different. Awesome. Okay, so Pinterest, I really built it up. But right now, Pinterest in general, again, because of the pandemic, has had a resurgence. And I say that because there's a lot of different things that are tied to lifestyle moments, people getting married, people having children, people renovating their home because they're in it a lot more than they've ever been. Pinterest is having a big moment. There's a lot of attention on it. But I think the thing that's always kind of like been in the back of my mind is, how do we talk about books on this platform? Because it's hard, it's really difficult. So I'm going to give you guys some examples, but I did want to just kind of show you that obviously this kind of took off in a big way. Okay, those are the differences between 47% on Pinterest, 11% right now. Like the attention being spent on this platform right now is crazy. And so you can use it in two different ways. You can use it to market your books. You can use it for inspiration. I want to go to the next slide because these were some of the different suggestions that we came up with when it comes to like how you can use the platform. And this can be individually for yourself, different things you want to do for your books. But I guess I'm just wearing my marketing hat saying, if you're going to do it, like share it with everyone and give Pinterest followers who are there the opportunity to pin things to the board, because it just kind of takes it to the next level. So if you're, have a character inspiration, these ones are more individual, but if you have writing inspiration, or if there's shareable content tied to your book, blog posts that influence or excite you, books that you're excited about, if you create a board in particular, other people can pin to it and see what inspires you. And we know more than ever, you guys as authors, there's just such a exciting moment for the book community to see how you operate, what your writing room looks like, those kinds of things. You know, you've been asked those questions in interviews. They really want to know how you put the story together. And Pinterest just gives such a visual storyboard in its own way. So these are some ideas. They're just starter ideas, but there is a really big conversation and a lot of attention right now on the app as a whole. It's definitely female. I'm sure that's not probably surprising to any of you. I think the demographics is like 78% of the audience is currently female. But there is a lot of people clicking off the app, much in the same vein as Facebook. They're okay going to the app, looking around. It's been called a digital mall in its own way because it's browsing. You're just looking at things and you're not sure. It's very different. You go with the like kind of window shopping kind of mentality when you go to Pinterest. You're less likely to stick around for a long time. You're kind of looking to find different pieces of content and go elsewhere. So I encourage you, if this is something that you're like, I was on Pinterest 5 years ago, and maybe it'll be fun to kind of restart it up. There's a lot of different conversations happening there. Not so much with the author and book community. Now, I say that as an opportunity, not as a hindrance. I think there's a really exciting opportunity with that much attention and that many eyeballs on this platform that you could be the first person to kind of like shaking it up there. And I did a lot of research to kind of prep for this particular slide to say who's doing it well. And there's not a ton of people, but I think there's opportunity. And I think because there's so much attention on the platform, I see it as a really cool thing for you guys to kind of dip your toe in, if that feels right to you. And I do emphasize that you don't have to be everywhere. If this is not for you, you can say that one was nice, but get me back on TikTok. Like there's different places. But I think Pinterest has a lot of opportunity. Okay, Clubhouse. You've probably heard about it. If you haven't heard about it, it is like mixing an audiobook with radio on an app. That's how I'm going to describe it. Clubhouse is an app that you can download, and it is a place where you can find different conversations happening about many different topics. In particular, there's a lot of writing communities, book communities, things of that nature. It's in its infancy. So Clubhouse kind of rolled out, if I'm being honest, in a very clunky way. They came out the gate and you had to kind of, it was like an exclusive invite. You had to know somebody who had a Clubhouse app and like then give you Amy got one of my recommendation things. You got 3 or 4. The reality is now they've taken all that away. Anyone can download the app. It's accessible to all. But it's really, there's great things about it and there's scary things about it. Right now, this is the demographics. 10 million people have downloaded it globally. It has on average 2 million people actively listening to it. And users are spending a lot of time on the app. I want to be super transparent and say this is a trend. I don't know if this platform is going to stick. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't asked about it frequently. I think there's a lot of opportunity, but I have not had anybody use it, or we have not used it in a way that I feel comfortable yet advocating for it. Spotify certainly knows, and we know from a publisher perspective, that audiobooks and audio in general is having a very big moment. And Spotify in particular have created their own app. I don't even know what it's called. I think Houghton does. She's my social media marketing manager. And so maybe she can share that in the chat. But I would say that other people know the value that this particular opportunity comes with. So I'm not sure if Clubhouse will be the one that sticks around or if there'll be something else, but I think audio is having a major moment and people just talking on the communities. There's something there for sure.
Yeah, I think this goes into a lot of the conversation that we've been having around, podcasts and the audio format and just using that medium a lot more so. It's interesting because Amani Joseph put into the chat, Clubhouse isn't available for Android, and it just recently became available. But going back to your earlier point, Lindsay, around like the rollout was a little bit clunky to say the least.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. And when we're talking about something as big as digital trends, we can't not talk about this platform, but it is so in such early days that whether it's Clubhouse, whether it's Fireside, whether it's Stereo, whether it's another platform that comes up, there's going to be something that, in a year or in, 18 months, it's going to start to bubble up. So it's more so, again, the goal of this presentation is not that it turns into a checklist of here's all the new platforms that you now must create. It's more so for you to know, okay, what are all the moving pieces on the landscape? And is there anything that actually piques my interest that I could start to lean into? And Stephanie London just said it's worth getting on Clubhouse for the author community, even if it's just tested out. There's some really valuable stuff on there. Absolutely. Again, it's a very interesting community. Once you find that community within Clubhouse, it can be valuable. It is a bit of a searching for it, but that's great to hear that it's become really valuable for you, Stephanie, because yes, it's definitely, we're seeing authors on there. We're seeing the library channel is leaning into Clubhouse. So there's a couple pockets that for us, we're watching as your publisher.
Yeah, really exciting to hear. Thank you for sharing that you're on the app and playing around with it. And I feel like I'm going to knock on your door very soon to like learn about like where you are and how you like it and what you like about it, because there's a lot of opportunity here. But to Amy's point, I think it's just we're learning, and I think this conversation could look very and feel very differently in a month. So lots more to come when it comes to Clubhouse as a whole. I did put this together just kind of, and I will share this deck with all of you, but kind of like how the order workflow of it all works, finding your topics of interest, setting up the profile. This seems like a lot of bullet points, but I think there's two things. There's both starting a club and starting the conversation, which is incredibly scary. If I'm being completely frank, it's just hard to like, just be like, yeah, I'm going to totally jump in, both feet in and kind of start a conversation. Everyone's just going to come and that could happen. You could be that person. But it is a little nerve wracking the first couple of times. I've heard some people do it and they're like, oh goodness. And then the other one is you could enter a room that's already happening and request to speak and be like on there. And they always talk very much like it's a panel. They'll say, okay, so coming up to the panel now. And I'm like, but nobody's actually physically moving anywhere, right? Like, very weird. But the language and the opportunities here it's just really exciting. So I think audio as a whole, and like I said, we know it's podcasts and audiobooks and everything. Audio is not going anywhere. I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I share this quote because everything about digital marketing changes all the time in the best way. I say that with a lot of excitement because I think it's really exciting. We didn't talk about Facebook and Twitter and all these other platforms. They are still super important. All of these platforms change, they develop, they get bigger, they get smaller. It changes all the time. So I think we'll continue to have these conversations as a whole, but it changes every single day. And I see it as a major opportunity. I hope you guys do too. There's lots more to come when it comes to digital marketing as a whole. I did want to use this opportunity to push you towards our upcoming sessions. I've mentioned it a couple of times. We've got 2 different TikTok sessions coming up. One being, should I be on the app and what does it look like for authors? The other being, how do I actually make a TikTok? You'll meet Hoden that one. She's going to walk you through everything. And then on November 10th, we'll be talking to you specifically about an Instagram growth strategy and what we've been recommending to authors and what we've been doing ourselves and have seen really wonderful results. So with all that being said, that is my email address. I encourage you guys, if you have any questions, I want you just to reach out directly. We're here. If you're seeing another platform that you're like, this is taking off and I'm dipping my toe in that, I'd love to hear it. It's just a conversation. And like, I want everybody excited about these platforms. You don't have to do them all. Just look around. If there's other things where you feel more comfortable, by all means, just let us know because we are spending our whole days on the internet and I love it. I love it. And there was another slide that said, I think it said at the end, ask me anything. I know you guys have been really great about asking questions. If there's any additional questions, by all means, ask away.
I'll give a moment just for the chat in case anyone's typing anything in. So far, we don't have any questions. I feel like we've kind of answered them on the fly. Can you talk a little bit more about, now that we've had this session, next steps? So people will get the recording, they'll get access to the deck. How will they receive that?
Awesome. It's like you and Jacqueline Michard set me up for this great question because I see her saying, is there a way I can get this recording? Really great question. As soon as the session's done, we're going to be posting this particular recording up on a YouTube account. It's a private YouTube account just for our authors to ensure you guys have access to it. And we'll be doing the same for all the other sessions. So if you're not able to make a session, that's okay. They'll be in the same link. We'll make sure you have them. We'll also be sending out the actual deck itself. So you can have all this information, and I'll put my notes in there to add an extra level of context as well, just so you have kind of like, yeah, what is Clubhouse? There's more information. I've got stats and a bunch of information in there.
That's perfect. So signing up for the sessions in the link that I'll just drop into the chat one more time. And so even if you can't make it, try to sign up for the session anyways, because that just means you'll receive all the automated updates afterwards. So you'll get the recording, you'll get the copy of the deck. The other piece is on that page at the bottom, there's a sign up link for our BookClubbish newsletter. So can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, you're great, Amy. You just really set me up. Like she runs this department or something, guys. No, honestly, it's really exciting with our BookClubbish newsletter. We actually hit 100,000 subscribers just yesterday. We're so thrilled. We've been working really hard at that goal. And now we just got to get it to 500,000. No pressure to the team watching. But our BookClubbish newsletter is really, really great because we have an engaged following of 100,000 people that they click on our content. They open everything we're putting in there. And what we really hope to do is have you guys sign up for the BookClubbish newsletter, because we're going to be sending you guys direct conversations and information to authors. So you guys always have the newest and up-to-date information. So when you sign up, we have your address, we know it's you, and that way we can add you to our list and send you all the frequent and these kinds of conversations. But from here on out, we'll just continue to keep in contact with all of you.
That's perfect. And then for all the different platforms that we talked about today, if you're not ready to jump in like both feet in of like, I'm suddenly going to be creating all the content on that platform, is it best to set up an account just to see what's happening? Like, do you just become a wallflower for a little while to get familiar with the platform? Is there a different way of kind of getting familiarized with something so that there isn't an expectation of, sorry, Jacqueline Michard, I'm just going to use your name. This is Jacqueline Michard on Clubhouse. Yeah. What's the best way of approaching it?
I think when it comes to all the different platforms, the one that kind of sparks your interest the most, I think you should definitely create an account and be a wallflower, look around, see what's happening on the platform. You do not have to immerse yourself right away. I suggest not signing up for everything, because again, it will be a little bit overwhelming. If I had to say dip your toes one place, I would say TikTok all in. There's just so much attention on it right now. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. So I really encourage you guys to sign up for next week's sessions, because I think TikTok is not going anywhere. And there's a lot of opportunities for authors in a big way. So I guess I would be a little bit like leaning towards that way, but I think there's other ways. If you're just like, no, Pinterest really feels like the place to be, or Clubhouse, jump in, test it out, watch, and then try. Sometimes you just have to rip off the Band-Aid and just jump in there and try, and then you could love it in a big way. I'm not dancing for anybody. You do not have to just dance. I know we've had a few members of the team being like, I am not dancing on this app. But we do a lot of pointing. You can point. That works too. But you'll start to see, once you're kind of immersed on the app itself, you can see what different fun content, and we'll have lots of content ideas next week. And we just to really emphasize about TikTok in particular, we have a dedicated rep who's walking us through tips and tricks and what we can be passing along to our authors. So yes, we're making this deck and we're presenting it, but it has actually been made in conjunction with our TikTok representative. So you will have the best, most up-to-date information about how to make strong content on that platform.
Okay.
You don't have to dance.
Hannah Mary McKinnon, you crack me up. So I think that wraps up everything for today, but thank you so much to all the authors who joined us today. Thank you, Lindsay, for walking us through this whole presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to loop back with us. And hopefully you can join us for next week's session. As Lindsay said, we're really working very closely as your publisher with the different platform account managers that we work with. So we're really bringing to you what are best practices, what's our own experience on our platform, but also what are those, what is Book Talk or TikTok saying is the best thing to do on their platform. So hopefully that helps with any learning curve. And again, this isn't a checklist of here's all the platforms for you to sign up to. It's really just making sure that you're aware of them. And if something interests you, absolutely join. You'll see Lindsay or Hoden or Abby's face on a lot of these different platforms. If you follow along at BookClubbish or at HTP Books, perfectly timed. Hoden just dropped them into the chat. And thank you again to everyone for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, you guys. Great questions.